Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be the, I guess, last edition of my fall book recommendations videos, I guess. I did the first one, which was horror and thriller. That was actually a lot of fun to read because I am new to the horror and thriller genres. So if you want to check that one out, I'll link it down below. And then same thing goes with my dark academia and fantasy edition of this series. It's literally 3 videos. None of these are purely romance. They're all either like romantasy, monster romance, supernatural romance. So do with that what you will. I don't have any like pure romance books that I would recommend for the fall. I do want to start by highlighting an indie author that I discovered a few years ago, and she's honestly such a sweetheart. I discovered her and this was way before book talk, and I just happened upon Marie Lau, I hope I'm saying it correctly. Symphony of the Fallen Stars. I read this when I was going through it, y'all. So this book has a lot of sentimental value to me, but it is a Hades and Persephone's retelling. And Hades in this story, I think, is a bit refreshing. Like, he's not your typical Hades persona, like bad boy with thick skin and like does bad things because he's trying to hide like the cinnamon roll inside. I think that this version of Hades in this story specifically, he is so much more nuanced and multi-layered, and he definitely, if you had to compare him to somebody, I guess you could compare him to Reese from the Akatar series, like if you like Rhysand. I do think that he has a little bit more to him than Rhysand, in my personal opinion. I think, and I don't want to say his name, because you find out what his name is in the book, and I don't know, like, it's just kind of sweet. So, Death, we're going to call him Death. Death in this specific Hades and Persephone's retelling is a death that is very like gentle and very soft-spoken. I don't often like Hades and Persephone's retellings because I feel like it's used as an excuse to make Hades a bully and Persephone a pushover, kind of, which, I mean, I'm not ultra familiar with like the mythology that goes behind those two gods, but I don't think it's that. For some reason in my brain, I don't accept it willingly and easily. I think if you're looking for a Hades and Persephone's retelling-esque story, which I guess I shouldn't assume, but to me that kind of just fits for this time of year, I would definitely recommend The Symphony of the Fallen Stars. And I think the next book is coming out in November. If I'm not mistaken, I think book 2 comes out in November. So I'm really excited. And then if you're looking for something that's a little bit more lighthearted, where the stakes aren't quite as high, I would recommend Sinful by the same author, Marie Lau. I would recommend Sinful. This is perfect if you are a Vampire's Diaries lover. Like, if you love those vampires, morally gray, they kind of like, you kind of are back and forth between whether or not they're the good guy or the bad guy or what the hell is going on. If that's your vibe when it comes to like, you want a nostalgic read that fits this time of year and you want it to be romance forward, I would definitely recommend Sinful. It was a lot of fun. I got so excited, you guys, telling you about the books that I forgot to tell you about the fucking books. I just told you how I felt about them. So I'm really, really sorry. This, like I said in the video, this is great for people who love Vampire Diaries, Twilight, just like those nostalgic like, I don't know, because I was more of a Twilight series versus Twilight movies, but these took me back. This took me back to my Twilight days, my first time watching the Vampire Diaries. I was never big on Teen Wolf, but I imagine that it'll probably strike a chord with people that watched the Teen Wolf series as well. Morgana is a young woman. She transfers to a new high school where she just is kind of hoping to like settle into her town, not really stick out, not really call too much attention to herself. And she witnesses a grisly murder. She witnesses a grisly murder, and Heath, one of her classmates, is the one who executes said murder. And then he just keeps popping up on her everywhere she goes, and she's like, what is going on? And of course they develop a relationship and you watch it unfold. But that is what Sinful is about. I'm really sorry that I like forgot to tell you what the book is about. I just got wicked excited to talk to you guys. Do you forgive me? Next up on the list is another one that it's giving more magical realism with a supernatural aspect to the romance versus like just straight up fantasy romance. But My Roommate is a Vampire. I read this last year. I think I read it in the summer, actually. This was a ton of fun. Cassie is a broke artist, and she moves in with this very mysterious character who ends up being really weird. He ends up being a vampire, but he's a vampire who was asleep for a really long time. His name is Frederick, I think. And he ends up being woken up in like modern day Chicago. And then he basically uses Cassie to teach him about like the real world and what's going on in the world now. They are so funny together. It's definitely a rom-com. It is lighthearted, but ultimately Frederick and Cassie are just like really cute together because they're both really weird, but like in different ways. And Cassie, I don't know, like she just is so relatable. Like she's just trying to get by in the world. She's an artist, a starving artist. She's just trying to get by. She's just trying to figure out how she feels about Frederick and address those emotions. And then you have Frederick who's just like he's so sweet and innocent and naive, but also like tries to put on the front like, no, I got this actually. But also like, what is a cell phone? They're just a really endearing couple. And the side character in this one, Reginald, I have his book. I don't remember what it's called. Something +1 vampire. But I have Reginald's book and I can't wait to read it because he was a ton of fun in this one. I get the impression that he maybe woke up before Frederick did, so he's like a little bit more familiar with the modern day world, but he also like isn't that helpful to his friend. I don't really know. I don't know. I can't wait to read his book and get more about it. But if you've ever read anything by India Holton, I think it is. Holton, I think it is. I read a book by her and it was about this group of ladies who are witches and their houses, like they use their houses to fight battles and it's just bonkers. It was bonkers and funny and silly and goofy, but also like really heartwarming. This falls into the same category. Like it just was a lot of fun to read. I want to say almost mindless. You just turn your brain off, read the story, enjoy the characters for what they are. It was a ton of fun. Right. Prepare yourself. I tried really hard to stay away from like the fantasy, but there's only so much I can do, you girl. Okay, there's only so much I can do in this world. And next up is another one that I would categorize as a romantasy. This is Tusk Love. Now I got the glare from the window. So I have Tusk Love, and this is by Thea Guanzon? I don't think I said it correctly. So in Tusk Love, you have Guinevere, and she is a young woman who is just kind of like Frederick in My Roommate is a Vampire. She's very naive, very innocent, like she sees the world through these rose-colored glasses, and her father's a merchant, and immediately you can tell that there is just something not great about her dad, or about her family, her parents, and ultimately the story is her on a journey. She's on a journey to get back to her parents because she is betrothed. And accompanying her on this journey is Oscar. I love Oscar so much. What is he, an orc? Yeah. So Oscar is a half orc. And he's just this like grumpy, kind of gruff character. But he also has such a big heart. And he is so sweet and helpful and like whenever he's wondering if he should assist or provide protection, it's never like a long internal argument. Like he pretty quickly decides like, yeah, I gotta do the right thing. He's just a really good orc guy. I loved Oscar so much. I loved Guinevere and Oscar. They were so cute together. They were so sweet. It is kind of romantic off the bat. It is a little bit insta-lovey, insta-lusty, especially because Guinevere has that very naive persona to her, so she kind of falls for Oscar rather quickly because he's being nice and he's being gentlemanly or gentle orderly. I'm not making up words anymore. So you basically just follow them like the entirety of this book, and it's really short. I think it's less than 300 pages, but the entirety of the book is them on this journey where they're trying to get to Guinevere's parents and her betrothed, and then Oscar realizes that he has feelings for her, and then they have to come to terms with their feelings, and then they get to the place they were going, and what are they gonna do? Are they gonna choose each other, or are they gonna walk away from each other at the end? So yeah, it's very typical romantic plot in my opinion, but I loved the characters. I think that in such a short amount of pages, you really got to kind of relate to and love the characters that you were reading about. Maybe not relate, but definitely love them for sure. I didn't find Guinevere relatable. Oscar was a little bit more relatable in my opinion because he felt a little bit more realistic. Guinevere did feel kind of like a princessy type character, which I don't personally love, but I liked her in this. I liked the way it was executed. There's not a ton of like, you're not fleshing out a magic system. You're not even fleshing out like this fantasy world. It's really just a book about a relationship between these two characters and how it plays out and how they like what choices they make. I don't want to give anything away because it's less than 300 pages, but I think if you're looking for a spicier monster romance, this is definitely a good one. I love this one because it was heartfelt and it was lighthearted, especially. It's another one of those books where you can kind of just turn your brain off and read. You can just turn your brain off, dive into that, read for a couple of hours, and next thing you know, you're going to come out feeling like super giddy. Oscar is a fantastic MMC. He is just so... He's such a gentleman. He's such a gentleman, even when he doesn't want to be, and I love that. That feeds my inner romantic, to be honest. And then, last up on this list, and I forgot how much I love this book. I recently reread it. I read it maybe end of last year, I think, and I really liked it. But then I was waiting for the paperback of book 2 to come out, and then I just kind of forgot about it. Recently, I read Six Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent at the recommendation of Sam. She saved my life. That is the perfect romantasy. I will accept 0 criticisms when it comes to Six Scorched Roses. There was nothing wrong with that book, nothing that should be changed. It was perfection. That's my opinion, of course. You can make your own opinion. But if it's not the same as mine, then no thank you. Kidding, obviously. But I really loved it. I loved Vale. I loved Lilith. I loved their relationship. I loved who they were separately as well. And then what really brought it home for me and made it perfect was what they did for each other, how they served each other. And then when I say that, I mean, Vale really did add to Lilith's life, and Lilith really did add to Vale's life. And I just appreciate when characters do that in a romance because it just makes the romance feel a little bit more organic. So I love their story so much. And then it was like, oh, well, I just read that, so maybe I should dive into the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I didn't remember anything from this except I think I thought I remembered the ending, which I did kind of, but not in actuality. Araya is the adopted daughter of the vampire king at the time, and Rain belongs to another group of vampires who want to take power from the current king. And you just come to find out so much more than you bargained for, in my opinion. Look at what my daughter did to my book. You see that? Isn't that so sad? Upon a reread, this is a 5-star book for me because Carissa Broadbent balances characters and character development really freaking well with a fantasy world. Like, she's fleshing out magic and characters and creatures while also carrying a strong romantic plot. And I'm in the middle of book 2, which is Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, or Ashes of the Star-Cursed King, one of the two. I feel like the balance is still there in book 2, even though we're a little bit more focused on the romance. The plot has not stopped. Like, the plot is still going on. It's just there are moments where we focus on the romance and then we have to go back to the plot. And I like the way that she does it. I like the way that she's switching my attention from one thing to the other. I like the balance that she's created between two very important parts of her story. And I thoroughly enjoy the characters. Like, I love Araya so much. I do get annoyed with her at times because I'm like, girl, can you speak? Can you talk? But it's never like overdone. It doesn't last a long time. I love her so much. I love Rain as well. I struggle a little bit with some of the choices he made, especially in book 1, but I'm expecting and hoping that book 2 by the end will give me a little bit of clarity on his motivations, his ambitions, the things that drove him to decide what he did. I'm just hoping they're going to be a little bit more, but even still, I really like him. I like his progression as a character. I like who we've found out he truly is, sort of, and I love his relationship with Mish. So I really do think I'm going to continue the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I loved it. I loved it. I think that Rain yearns for Araya, and I love the way that he does it because it's never like pushy or like in her face. It's very much so like yearning from a distance with respect, like respect to boundaries. And I just love that about him so much. His respect for her boundaries is so important. So I think if you're looking for a fantasy romance, in my opinion, with vampires and trials, and it's the atmosphere that she has set in these 2 books is giving like you are in a village full of vampires. Like, it's doom and gloom, fight for your life, wear a cloak. I love that vibe. And I think that she's executing it so well in these 2 books. I can't wait to read Misha's story because I love her too. But yeah, if you haven't read it or if you haven't heard of it, Serpent in the Wings of Night, I think will feed the fantasy romance that some of us are searching for, because again, I feel like with Serpent in the Wings of Night, the fantasy and the romance, or the plot and the romance, they do go together. Like, they work with each other to continue the story. But I think, at least in the first book for sure, I think that if you were to remove the romance or like subdue the romance, you would still have a really strong fantasy story. And that's what I'm looking for right now is like I want a strong romantic plot, but I also want a fantasy plot that it can hold its own. And that way I'm kind of being like challenged on both ends to connect to characters while staying connected to a magic system and a conflict. Like that's really important for me. I'm going to be quiet now because I did enough yapping for however long this video ends up being, but those are the more romance forward recommendations that I have for your fall reading if you are looking for something with romance. I'm really sorry that I didn't have anything that was like purely romance, like contemporary romance or anything. I just don't read much in the fall. So like my brain can't code it as such, you know? If you guys don't mind, drop your recommendations below, whether it's fantasy romance, romantasy, contemporary romance for the fall. Drop your recommendations below so that I can probably pull some romance recommendations for the fall. Maybe I'll start delving into that a little bit deeper, but also so that if other people come to the video and maybe they want something else other than what they've seen, they can check the comments out, because I think that's how we share book recommendations and that's how our TBRs get out of control, and I am here for it. I don't have any respect for that TBR that I honestly haven't checked on in a while because I'm scared. Last time I looked, I think I was at like 30 something, 305 or something like that. I don't know. I'm nervous because I went book shopping. I will see you guys for the next video. As always, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it every single time, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Happy reading.